Hey guys, welcome back to Tower of God, a new world. In today's video, I want to go through all of the SSR plus units and talk about how they can be used and what teams you can use them and stuff like that. So depending on who you got at your 200 pity, everyone's sitting with one, you can hopefully have a use for them. Now, I'm going to be judging this off of only having a single copy, so 0 dupes. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these guys get a lot better with dupes, but I'm counting it as 0 dupes and also only like just unlocking the exclusive weapon. As you can see, his is on level 1 because I was trying to figure out a way to get rid of that stupid red dot, but I can't figure out how to get rid of it. If anyone knows, let me know. But yeah, I'm only including having these just unlocked, not maxed out or anything like that, because we're looking more at the early game usage of them. And keep in mind, when we talk about some of them, getting the evasion up can be really handy when we talk about some of the stall units. So that's just something else that I'll mention, but I know most people won't have those unlocked yet. So the first one we're going to go through is going to be Caraca. Now, I love this dude. He is, with this ultimate, he can basically summons an orb, it taunts all enemies, and then it like absorbs the damage and then reflects it back, essentially. This one is orbs that he throws out, which are really handy, especially if you use something like a Rachel to spin enemies into it. This one is a taunt that he puts around himself and gives damage mitigation. And this one is his passive, where when he dies, he comes back to life and fears enemies. But I'm going to jump into here because I've done a lot of playing with him. Basically, in the first sort of 7 chapters, I found he works really well in that, like, he's just like a god unit. He can just tank and then he can just use his ultimate and cheese entire teams. If you get the entire team lined up in front of his ultimate, he'll just delete them all. Like, he doesn't even care. But once you get into these later sort of chapters, a bit higher deficits, enemies get stronger. And what I'll do is I'll show you here, and I'll even run Endorsi in here because she'll distract a few hits. But what happens is he just lacks the survival once you get to this stage. Now, if we get the loading screen to happen, you'll see. So once you get to this stage, you can use him in 2 different ways. One is putting him in here like this, and he basically just becomes a bit of a stall distraction tank where he dies and then comes back and fears and then dies again, and he served his purpose. But the problem is when you play him like this is that he doesn't get to use his taunt before he dies the first time. So he revives and then uses his taunt and basically just dies without even being able to use his ultimate. So that is the problem. So normally I am playing him in the back row. You know, I'd be playing him in something like this, trying to split the aggro, trying not to let him get hit too much early on so that he can actually get towards an ultimate. But like I said, once you get to this stage, chapter 7 and earlier, he just go nuts. He's pretty just godly. But here, you kind of want to split that damage, make sure your other ally can actually survive. You can see I'm using my Evankel here. She actually died. He still didn't get it to work. So you really have to play around with him once you get into these harder stages to make him work. But still, nonetheless, a fantastic unit. Really enjoying the guy. And like I said, absolute monster in the early chapters. As for teams, I basically just like him as the core unit in a dark team, and that's the sort of thing I normally do. I normally use like 4 dark units, pretty much always these guys. Otherwise, sometimes Endorsi drops out, and we can go with something like Anima Chick, and that's pretty much the 2 different cores that I use for the dark team. And then I leave the last slot as a flex spot for a damage dealer or something like that. Moving on from that, I should probably talk about this unit because this is unfortunately the one unit I can't get to work myself. All the others I can find some usage for, but she's just... I think she's one of those units that requires a lot of investment. So I think I've seen her do really well in boss fights. I don't think her campaign usage is going to be crazy. I could well be wrong on that. Because she ramps up and it's all about basic attack. She's not bursty. She seems like a boss specialist, but she also needs high investment into like her exclusive equipment and stuff like that to get that damage. So I think she's one that's going to be more of a long-term play and she'll get better with time. But at the moment, I haven't found a great use. If you have, please let me know in the comments. Like I said, I've tested her a fair bit, but just not getting the magic with her. So yeah, please let me know, because unfortunately I was hoping to have like a real solid use case for all characters, but unfortunately she's struggling for me. Next up is going to be Kel. Now, Kel is just an absolute damage dealing monster. Now, the great thing about Kel is, I spoke about in a previous video how like something like Hats is really good, but you need a ton of dupes with him. And if you're not getting the luck, like if you look at my account, it's pretty spread out. This is my test server account, so I was putting different stuff on the wish list to test characters. But if you're not getting the dupes of him, he's not too good. But if you have someone like Kel, you can kind of like leave hats on the wish list happily as you roll through those dupes, and in the early stages she can operate as your primary damage dealer. Even against blue units, she can deal monstrous amounts of damage, and it all comes into a combination of her ultimate and also this passive. So the passive is when she drops below 32%. Oh no, when she drops... Wait, what is it? When I just know when she drops below. When she drops below 30%, that's it. There you go. When she drops below 30%, she's going to increase her attack by 40% and get healed up. So this is the cool thing. So she's got like a sort of a cheat death, we'll call it, but she also has this attack buff when she procs it. And a lot of the time she's going to be proccing this into using this ultimate, and this ultimate does a massive multiplier. You can see we've got 200% every second for 4 seconds, or if enemies are very close, it's going to be 300%, bringing it out to a 1200% multiplier, which is really, really solid. On top of that, she becomes invincible while using it. So for 4 seconds, she's dealing massive damage and she's invincible, which is really huge, because if she wasn't invincible, it would be an absolute flop of an ability. But those are the two things that synergize really well with her to make her an absolute monster damage dealer. And I think the team you want to use her in is basically either she just subs in well into either a yellow or a purple team, where, you know, if you had the yellow team, you'd be looking at something like, unfortunately I don't have the full yellow squad built out here, you'd be looking at those two, possibly him but not really, old mate whose name I've forgotten, who gives the yellow buff, and you know, you look at an Evan or something like that in this team, but you'd be looking at your yellow team with her as a damage dealer. Now you can put her in red teams as you go along, but most people aren't building that. Most people are building dark core or yellow core, and she just works in that flex 5th position as your damage dealer depending on the situation. And I pretty much always bring her when she's at least neutral to the enemies, and sometimes I will bring her against blue enemies. So that is Kel, absolute monster damage dealer. Now I do think that she will fall off without dupes as we go further into the game, once you start getting SSRs duped up, because they will start getting those multiplier increases, stat increases, and she may fall off in the damage sense, but early on that is what she is used for. Next up we have the Data Mashni. Now she is probably up there with Evan for my favorite long-term usage character in the game out of these SSR pluses that we have, because she is just a stall unit and she just lasts forever, essentially. Like she's gonna have infinite usage even at 1 copy, even at low level, because of this passive. So she's not there for the damage. Later on, yes, she can do damage, but at this stage I'm just using her as the best stall tank that we have in the game at the moment. Now once again, she's one of those ones, if you get the evasion, she's gonna stall even better. But when we look at this passive, she removes all status effects and swallows a lightning pill, drops her when her HP drops below 40%. Upon consuming the lightning pill, she gains 100 lightning pill gauge, and then she consumes 10 of that gauge every second, and basically it lasts, so she gets like 10 seconds of this gauge, but it can increase when she uses a skill. So it's just honestly an amazing ability. So basically normally you're looking at 11 to 13 seconds of just straight invincibility when she uses this. Not invincibility, but immortality, we'll call it, because she can go down to 1 HP. And that is the main usage for her. She's the best stall tank, distractor, take it, just bullet sponge, whatever you want to call it. She's absolutely amazing at it to let your team ramp up. And I think her, along with Evan, are the two that having a single copy of will get you, will have the uses further on into the game, just because they don't care about dupes, they don't care about multipliers for the main purpose that they're serving. Yes, if you have her max duped and fully invested, she's going to deal damage as well, but you can get away with her at 1 copy, and that effect is always going to remain the same no matter how many dupes or anything like that you have. Moving on from that, Evan, this guy's just an absolute beast. Energy recovery out the wazoo, plus he's got the invincibility that, well, it's kind of like immortality that leaves you at 10%. And then based on the damage you take during that period, you get healed based on that, which is just a thing that is always going to scale better as you go further on. So as long as you can get to the stage where he uses this to save your allies, a lot of the time it is a bit tricky getting them to survive to that point once you're pushing a bit more of a deficit. But if you can, it's really, really helpful. It's a massive heal, and it's just straight, don't have to worry about damage for that short period, which is often fantastic. This guy is a beast. I love him, and I think he's going to just have that great usage, even at one copy, pushing further into the end game. So him and Data Mashni, I feel like will have the longest use at a single copy. And this guy just, honestly, if you can make your team survive, the one annoying thing about him is that when I feel like his rotation is kind of scuffed. Maybe it's just my personal experience with him, but often he will have full energy, but because you can't ability cancel in this game, it feels like he'll just sit there with full energy for like 4 to 6 seconds and do nothing until he finally uses his ult, which can get frustrating, but besides that, amazing unit. And now we're going to jump into Data Zahad. Almost stumbled my words there, but this guy, he's kind of like Data Mashni in that he is a stall tank, but he can do damage, but it's not reliable like someone like Kel. So let's go through his kit. So the thing that makes him a stall tank is, first of all, his weapon has 3 different forms, and once he reaches HP thresholds, he will change his weapon. But the thing about changing his weapon is that for 3 seconds while that happens, he is invincible. So in those 2 changes, you've got 6 seconds of pure invincibility. But the cool thing about this is it's not like someone like Data Mashni, where once she procs it, she can't like put it on hold. It's like she gets that time and then it's gone. Whereas he can maybe proc one of them and then avoid damage for a period of time and then proc the next one when he needs it. So I personally prefer Data Mashni as a stall tank, but if you're fighting against blue units, he starts to excel more because he can deal more damage and stall better. Now he also, like as you can see, he has evasion tied into his kit as well. So here's another one that is going to benefit greatly from the report and getting up to this 100 evasion, because it's going to help him do that evasion tanking a lot better. So keep in mind, if you do have him, that is going to be very beneficial and allow him to serve his purpose more. Now, on top of that, he does have silences, he has knockdowns, he has stuns and stuff like that as well, which can also help stall out a game. And also when he's using his ultimate, he is in no matter which form of it he's in, he will also be invincible whilst using that ultimate. On top of that, this final form of the ultimate, when he's getting low, which is normally where mine uses it, because he gets hit so hard early on the other account, it does have a decent multiplier, but when you compare it to Kel, you go, oh, that's a similar multiplier to Kel's, but she also has the fact that, you know, she can buff her own attack and stuff like that. But the one thing I will add in is that his ultimate also in forms has the defense decrease as well. So he's sort of got a mixed bag kit where he can stall, he can, you know, control a little bit, but he can also debuff, which is really handy. So I think he's a good unit, but he really wants to fight against those blue units to really excel. Not like Data Mashni, where I just sort of splash her against anything. I mean, on the account that I have him on, you just splash him against anything anyway, but he performs way better against those blue units. And basically that's where I would focus on bringing him in, is against blue units, but also against anything. If you lack a better stall tank, he can still work wonders. So even if you're fighting red units, I would still recommend bringing him in, letting him bullet sponge as much as he can before he drops, and hopefully the rest of your team can get the job done. But yeah, that is Data Zahad. So that is my summary on all of them. Unfortunately, once again, for Big Mashni, I couldn't come up with something concrete to give you guys. So if you are using her, please let me know. And if you're using any of these characters in a different way to what I talked about, please let me know. I'm always curious to see. And like I said, this was based off of 0 dupes, low investment. So as we go further, ones like Zahad here will definitely excel in damage more as you get them further invested. But as always, guys, that is going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.